Morocco, from Senegal, from Algeria, Tunisia, and other African nations. Today, France that couldn't appreciate the sacrifice that African soldiers made to keep France as a country in one piece. The same France is coming to gaslight Africa. I don't think Macron understands and knows history properly, because if Emmanuel Macron understands history, he would have been grateful to Africa for feeding France for donkey years. It is embarrassing to hear under their security architecture, insecurity was even worse. Coups and counter-coups continue to happen unabated. And what did France do? France looked the other way and continued to foster their interests. And when it was time for the erstwhile colonies to seed relationship with them, all we hear is about ingratitude and how these nations needed to pay homage and appreciate France for doing next to nothing. I like the fact that Chad and Senegal has replied Emmanuel Macron appropriately, and I expect more African nations to do the same. France is also deepening some sort of new relationships with Nigeria, and Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to be careful because Nigeria cannot survive in isolation. What sort of relationship does Emmanuel Macron want with Nigeria at a time when his former colonies and allies have rejected him? Statements like this from Emmanuel Macron is one that Nigerian leadership needs to also take into cognizance, because if France that benefited maximally from Africa cannot appreciate her former colonies that supported and provided military troops for the existence of France, then it is time for us to have a rethink with the kind of new partnerships we want to get into with France. This is an entitlement mentality, and I understand the colonizers will always feel entitled, like what we hear and see Emmanuel Macron demonstrate in France is an indication that he failed his people. And instead of blaming his failure on centuries of exploitation of Africa and telling his people truth, Emmanuel Macron was busy lying about how ungrateful we were. How has France really helped any of her colonies in the last 50 years? None of the colonies under France is doing well. Even Cameroon that exists today is a shadow of what it used to be back in the days of Amadou Ahidjo, because France needs to maintain its interest, and they don't care about whoever leads Cameroon, provided the status quo is maintained and France's interest is served. It is a pity that Emmanuel Macron will embarrass Africa the way he's trying to do. And I expect Djibouti and other African nations where France still has its military base to begin to have a rethink if they truly need these military bases where they have stationed these guys for many years. I love what has happened, but Africa needs to begin to move beyond the East or West bloc if Africa needs to develop. Because if we are engaged in proxy wars, the biggest casualties and victims will still be Africa, her resources, and their leaders. I love to read your comment on this developing story, and I say thanks for watching.